The wind had stopped abruptly as I descended the mountain road. The air grew heavier with each turn, and even the engine's hum seemed swallowed by a sudden pressing silence. The narrow dirt path stretched ahead, flanked by pines so tall that their tops vanished into a blanket of low clouds. The sky was neither fully gray nor white, suspended in a muted twilight. The path itself felt older than time, each stone uneven and brittle under the tires. The town appeared at the edge of the forest, a cluster of small, whitewashed houses clinging to one another as if leaning for support. Roofs sloped in near-perfect symmetry, chimneys thin and straight. Smoke rose from only a few of them, thin streams that were immediately consumed by the thick air. The place seemed almost picturesque at first glance, but something about its perfection was wrong. There was a weight to the streets, a suffocating calm. The bridge that spanned the sluggish river at the town's edge was low and worn. Stopping, I stepped out of the car, the tires crunching on the gravel. The water beneath was a dull gray, nearly still, and patches of moss made the surface appear broken, textured. The silence pressed in from all sides. No birds, no insects, no sound of life beyond the occasional whisper of wind through distant pines. I left the car and approached a small house near the riverbank. The front door was ajar. The key, a rusted iron loop, rested neatly in the lock. Inside, the air smelled faintly of fresh soap and damp wood. The floor was bare, polished until it reflected the dim light from the single window. On the small wooden table sat a plate with shriveled fruit, and beside it, a folded piece of paper. It read simply, "Welcome." There was no signature, no indication of who had left it. The first night passed under a blanket of oppressive silence. The walls creaked as if the house itself were breathing. Outside, faint flickers of light suggested activity at the town square, but no human figure was visible. The stillness pressed against my skin, as though the air itself were a living barrier. Morning brought a small loaf of bread at my doorstep, still warm, tied with a thin bundle of dried herbs. I could not imagine who had left it, and yet I did not throw it away. Its careful placement and warmth suggested an intention far beyond hospitality. Walking through the streets, I noticed the town's meticulous order. Every fence post aligned, every window identical, every stone in the pavement the same size and shape. Even the smallest details seemed rehearsed. The streets were empty of sound, but I felt eyes on me from every direction. Windows, doorways, cracks between boards. Every face I glimpsed at a distance held the same expression, calm and benign. Yet beneath that tranquility, a weight pressed down. It was not hostility, but neither was it welcoming. By the afternoon, I had wandered to the town square. A small church dominated the center, its walls whitewashed and precise. The bell tower stretched above the rooftops, silent but ominous. The square was barren. The few buildings surrounding it were shuttered, but a sense of anticipation hung in the air. Shadows shifted where no one should have been, and the stones beneath my feet felt slightly uneven, as if hiding cracks deeper than mere foundation. As the day passed, I became aware of the rhythm in the town. Every morning the bell tolled, every afternoon the bread appeared, every evening the shadows shifted. It was not a town alive with life. but a town alive with repetition. Time itself seemed to bend around this cycle, slowing until the moments felt like stone. On the second day, I wandered toward the river again. Between the mossy stones, a glint caught my eye. A small bronze pendant, worn and tarnished, lay half buried. Inside the tiny locket was a photograph, faded, the edges curling. The face was unfamiliar, though the image itself felt deliberately placed, like a message. I pocketed it and returned to the house, uneasy. That night, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters. I could hear footsteps outside, deliberate and measured, heavy and slow, echoing against the river stones. I pressed myself against the wall, breath shallow. The steps stopped directly beneath my window, then retreated. When I checked the street, it was empty, but on the doorstep, there was a deep scratch across the threshold, long and deliberate. In the following days, the rhythm of the town became oppressive. The bread, the herbs, the carefully arranged doors and windows, the precise angles of the roof lines. Each morning I woke to the same scene. Each night the footsteps returned. The pendant reappeared on the table, even after I had hidden it, its photo replaced with another, this time indistinct, but suggesting a presence. The church door stood ajar one morning, inviting yet foreboding. Inside, the air was heavy, thick with the scent of damp stone and old smoke. The pews were empty, but the walls bore faces etched crudely into the plaster. Each expression was identical, serene yet unnerving, a smile frozen on every mouth, eyes closed. A book lay open on the altar, pages yellowed, text in a language I could not read. A single sentence was clear. The body goes, the town remains. That evening, I returned to the river. The water, once dull gray, had thickened, almost metallic. Ripples moved against the current as if something below shifted. I felt the urge to step back but was compelled forward. The path to the bridge seemed longer than before, the air colder. A smell arose, subtle at first, then unmistakable. Burnt herbs, iron, and damp earth. It clung to my skin and hair, impossible to ignore. Sleep became fragmented. I awoke each day at the same hour, the bell tolling in my mind, even when I was too far to hear it. My reflection in the window seemed altered, hollowed, as if the town had begun to imprint its pattern on me. I realized then that I was no longer merely observing. I was part of the rhythm. One night, descending toward the town square, I saw them, a gathering of shadowed figures moving in silence. They formed a circle, holding small, indistinguishable objects. Their movement was deliberate, precise, almost ceremonial. The center of the circle remained empty, a space reserved, waiting. I approached, compelled, though my body resisted. The air thickened, pressing against my chest. One figure advanced, indiscernible in detail but deliberate in motion, and placed an object in the center. The crowd remained silent, a single entity moving with mechanical cohesion. My feet carried me forward, step by step, until I stood in the circle's center. The river beside me shimmered unnaturally. I realized then that the town's calm, its perfect order, its absence of chaos had a cost. It was sustained, year after year, through the taking of one. The ritual was not announced. It did not require words. It was the pattern, the rhythm, the inevitability. A surge of cold swept over me as I understood. This year, I was chosen. The pendant from the river lay in my palm, its photograph now unmistakably my face. The crowd around me knelt without lowering their heads. their stillness pressing inward. The river's metallic surface reflected the pale moonlight, flickering across stone and flesh. The ground beneath shifted subtly, as though anticipating the descent. Time slowed. Each breath, each heartbeat, became a hammer, driving home the realization that there was no escape. The air was thick with expectation, and yet absolute silence. No words, no gestures, only the weight of collective inevitability. The bell tolled once more. The town, aligned perfectly, surrounded me in its symmetry. Every shadow, every figure, every silent observer had guided me here. The rhythm concluded with a finality that was not meant to be resisted. I felt my legs stiffen, my body responding to a force older than memory, older than the stones beneath my feet. The pendant burned cold in my hand. My vision, sharpened by fear, traced the familiar lines of the town, the river, the bridge, the walls of the houses, all conspiring in perfect, quiet order. And then it was over. The town exhaled as one. My presence became a part of its rhythm. The ritual concluded without sound, without acknowledgement. The river returned to its dull gray, the bread appeared at doors, the bell resumed its measured toll. Life in the town continued as if nothing had happened. Morning came again. The streets, the houses, the windows were unchanged. The pattern persisted. Somewhere beyond the hills, another traveler would arrive, ignorant of the rhythm, of the cost, and the town would wait, patient, eternal, and uncompromising. I was no longer a visitor. I had become part of the pattern. The town had claimed me. The wind began to stir once more, brushing through the pines. The bridge waited, the river waited, the streets waited. And somewhere, beyond the horizon, a new set of footsteps approached. The town, as always, would not let the stranger remain a stranger.